And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, let's get right into this. Former Congresswoman Katie Porter sat down for 22 minutes with Elex Michaelson on the issue is to discuss that she's running for governor.
Oh!
And she's in it to win it.
Unless Kamala gets in.
Then she's in it till then.
Let's start with why exactly she's running and why she keeps mentioning Trump.
You're watching The Issue Is.
What California needs now is a little bit of hope and a whole lot of grit. Fresh blood.
No self-respecting Southerner uses instant grits.
She's from Iowa.
Fresh blood and new ideas, and leaders with the backbone to fight for what's right. That's why I'm running for governor.
Couldn't hear that, Katie. Too many violins.
Tons of music in the background.
That is former Democratic Congresswoman Katie Porter announcing her run for governor of California this week. Welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. Thanks so much for being with us. Joining us now for her first local TV sit-down of the campaign.
I don't think she's done any national TV yet either.
I don't think she's done much at all.
Has she used the exercise bike that's in the kitchen?
I have some ideas on that, but we'll save those for another day.
Is Congresswoman Katie Porter. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations on the run.
Appreciate it. I'm really excited.
So in the past,
Congratulations on saying you want a job that you're not qualified for.
And won't get.
Appreciate it. I'm really excited.
So in the past, we've always...
There's almost a little high pitch there.
Oh, she's very excited.
Appreciate it. I'm really excited.
So in the past, we've always talked to you about mostly federal issues. You've never run for statewide office before or local office before. Why do you want to be governor?
Well, look, I think right now the federal and the state are going to come together. Why do I say that? Because the governor is going to have two big tasks, and they're going to have to be able to do both. One is stand up to Trump.
Oh, boy.
Okay, I love the fact that the budget crisis, the insurance crisis, the homeless crisis, crime, fires, water, none of that makes the top of the list. It's fighting Donald Trump.
One is stand up to Trump, block and tackle attacks that are coming, try to push Trump to deliver for California.
I mean, she could tackle.
Oh, could you imagine being the quarterback that takes that hit?
No! Block and tackle attacks that are coming, try to push Trump to deliver for California where we can, and at the same time, focus on California's challenges, things like the cost of housing, which is something I've worked on my whole career.
Love how that's second fiddle.
Cost of housing, number two. Number one, attacking Trump.
And at the same time, focus on California's challenges, things like the cost of housing.
Who the hell is consulting her?
Probably the same people who took her last time.
Challenges, things like
They're getting another roof to their house this time.
Another roof to their house. They're getting another house.
challenges, things like the cost of housing, which is something I've worked on my whole career, childcare, which continues to be a big problem for families after the pandemic, and making sure that our economy is strong and growing. So I think being able to know how to negotiate with the federal government, knowing where those levers are, I think we're all getting a crash course in just how important that is in these first months of Trump's presidency.
Is there some?
I don't know about that.
Okay, let's just look at those state and local subjects that she regards as important. Number one is housing. Okay, I'll give you that. That's a legitimate issue. I'm sure all of her ideas are bad, but that's a legitimate issue.
Well, and she knows a lot about it because she lives in subsidized housing.
Yes, the state of California owns the home that she lives in. Number two is childcare. Of all of the problems facing California, would that make anyone's top three? For the governor to tackle that issue immediately?
Well, as you know from her Senate race, Katie Porter's always on the pulse of the most important issue facing people in California. And in that race, it was earmarks.
And number three is the economy. Okay, the economy is very important, but that's also primarily a federal issue. Whether or not GDP is up or down, whether or not trade deals are cut or not, those things have a much bigger impact on the economy than anything a governor can do. And that's what she puts at number three.
in these first months of Trump's presidency.
Is there some people that saw that, Trump being such a big part of your announcement and thought, why not talk more about local issues? And maybe argue that with Trump, you've got to try to get him on your side to give money. I mean, we see Newsom has really softened his approach to Trump to try to get, all this federal dollars.
They're buddy-buddy now.
Oh, yes.
Well, look, a lot of our local projects and a lot of the things that California takes pride in are tied in part to federal funding. So we provide health.
You mean like the high-speed rail?
She doesn't care about state issues. This is just a place for her to land to remain relevant. She could care less about anything going on in California right now.
Well, what does she even know about California right now? Outside of, a few weeks a year, she's pretty much lived in D.C. since 2018.
She was educated in Massachusetts. She's from Iowa. She came here to teach college, to teach at the law school at the University of California at Irvine. She won a federal office. She worked on federal issues. She ran for U.S. Senate and lost another federal office. She doesn't know anything about California.
To federal funding. So we provide health care. Medi-Cal's a good, strong health care system.
No, it's not.
On what planet?
It's literally $3 billion over budget right now. Gavin's asking the general fund for a loan.
I wonder if she's even aware of that.
They do get into it later, but it's not her that brings it up. It's Elex.
Where does that money come from? The federal government. I'm working back in the classroom at the University of California. We're seeing on...
Still, or did you quit that job already?
At some point, they may make her move. How many leaves of absence can you go on?
It's going to be a year and almost 2-year campaign we're talking about here, after she already got to keep that house for the 6 years that she was in Congress. How exactly does it make any sense that she still gets to live at the UC Irvine Village for teachers?
Tom Campbell used to sit on the editorial board at the Orange County Register with me. He's a good guy. Former congressman from San Jose. His day job was being a professor at the University of California at Berkeley. And he was in Congress for a while. And I'm not even sure if he was living in state housing when he was a professor there. But at a certain point, Berkeley came to him and said, hey, either you have to quit Congress or you have to resign your position, one or the other. But they just let her go on forever.
We're seeing in real time on campus the effects of Trump's cuts to research grants, to NIH, to funding. And so I think it's about recognizing that these things are going to intersect. The only way we're going to survive as California and thrive, which is the goal, during Trump's presidency and beyond, is if we have a strong economy that can weather some of the things that he's going to throw back at us.
But is the best way to deal with Trump to sort of punch him in the face, or is the best way to try to shake his hand?
Well, one of the things I've said before is I will say yes to anybody.
Well, we've learned that.
We heard that story.
In fact, we have some requests to replay it, and I don't know if we can hear that another time.
And I will also say no to anybody. I think I have a reputation throughout the state as a straight shooter, as somebody who cannot be bought, not by any entity or any organization. So where there are opportunities to...
Except for big minivan.
I wonder what brand of minivan it is that she drives.
So where there are opportunities to work with Trump, and I think Governor Newsom did the right thing, asking Trump to come and look at the wildfires, walking with him, showing him what California needs. We need a strong advocate for California with how we engage with the federal government, just like we need a strong advocate for statewide concerns when we're dealing with local and county government.
Can you imagine if there's another series of fires and she's the governor and they invite Trump to come out and survey the damage with her? And it's her in Doc Martens and a house dress with the sunglasses on top of her head, barking orders at Trump. How Trump would respond to that?
Little D.
Elex then asked Katie Porter, what is one of your big ideas that makes you think that you should run the state?
So in your ad, you talked about that you want to bring some big new ideas. What is one big new idea that you're bringing? Yeah,
so housing is going to be the sort of most top of mind, laser focused on housing. I think we've seen...
Then how come that wasn't in your ad?
It didn't even make the ad. And again, I don't want to belabor the point. You don't live in a home that you own. We own it.
Yeah, so housing is going to be the sort of most top of mind, laser focused on housing. I think we've seen California make some progress using the housing targets, the affordable housing targets.
And by the way, why do professors even have subsidized housing? Don't they all make 6 figures a year?
Good point.
Well, go out and buy your own damn house.
Irvine ain't cheap.
Live in Stanton.
The affordable housing targets in each community, they have not gotten us where we need to be, which is making housing affordable.
And of course, she can't criticize what's going on. So she says, what's going on right now is great, but it's just not going far enough.
Yeah, she does not want to be critical of Gavin.
To be, which is making housing affordable for that next generation of workers.
Every single thing Gavin Newsom has done to make housing more affordable, to speed up construction in the state of California, even when he's trying to ram housing down the throats of neighborhoods that don't want it, has it lowered the cost of housing at all?
Not one bit.
For the folks who are graduating from our universities. And so we're going to need to think about how to do that. Part of that is going to involve being willing to look at the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, and see.
So her big idea is to rip off John Cox's campaign from 2018?
Imagine her campaigning with a bear.
CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, and see where it is being used not to protect any serious environmental concerns, but in fact just to block housing.
Have you heard a big new idea yet?
No, I haven't.
Housing development. And I think there are some really good partners in the legislature. This is not ideological. Folks like Buffy Wicks, Scott Wiener in the California Assembly and Senate, they're already talking about this. The second piece on housing, I would say, is we focused a lot.
Wait a minute. Scott Wiener is who you look at as being this paragon of virtue?
Porter is a fan of Wiener.
You don't say. All right, play the tape.
Scott Wiener in the California Assembly and Senate, they're already talking about this. The second piece on housing, I would say, is we focused a lot so far on how to get people off the streets who are experiencing homelessness, out of encampments, getting them into a safe place, making our communities safer. And that's really important. The piece we need to now focus on is preventing more people from becoming homeless.
Have you heard a big new idea yet?
No, I haven't.
Because if she's talking about emergency rent subsidies to people that are about to end up on the street, there is no quantifiable data that has ever worked.
No, what she's talking about doing is giving more money to these phony baloney homeless organizations that have made homelessness worse.
Because that is an expensive problem and a hard problem to solve. So there are some really successful programs, including some being piloted across the state, that focus on homelessness prevention. And
that's a racket.
And you know who it does enrich, though? It enriches the people, the politically connected people who run those organizations.
And that, I think, is an area where we need to put more effort.
So if you had to concisely say the sort of the big idea on housing, it's what? It's
Elex, who can be a very generous interviewer, is trying to nail her down. What is your idea? Because I haven't heard one yet.
Well, he's hearing the same thing we are.
So if you had to concisely say the sort of the big idea on housing, it's what? It's CEQA reform, or
it is to unleash more building more quickly, right?
Haven't heard that one before.
Okay, we can't even rebuild the homes that just burned down in Pacific Palisades for 5 years. That's the estimate. 5 years.
Right? So it's not just saying we need more housing, which I think the governor... So CEQA reform is part of it.
Yeah.
California making investments in some of the infrastructure for communities. So the sewer, the water, all of those things drive up costs for builders. Yeah. And we could think of those things as infrastructure because housing is infrastructure for...
When you think of the sewer, think Katie Porter.
That's going to be a hard connection for people to make.
These are the most basic... non-detailed, generic ideas I've ever heard.
We need to reform CEQA. Okay, how about getting rid of it?
And we could think of those things as infrastructure, because housing is infrastructure for our entire economy. And then prevention of homelessness, really thinking about how can we get ahead of people becoming homeless, because we know that once someone experiences chronic homelessness, it's very, very challenging and very, very expensive to address it.
There was an audit from Proposition H here in Los Angeles County about where all of the money went over the last 10 years. And a big chunk of it went to homelessness prevention with zero actual results.
No, because what she's talking about is she's talking about after-school programs. She's talking about child care initiatives. She's talking about things of that nature, midnight basketball. That's not why people are homeless. People aren't homeless because they have too much time on their hands and, I don't know, or parents who need to take on a second job can't because they have to stay at home and watch their kids. People end up homeless because of drug addiction and because of mental illness. And she is part of the let's put all our chips down on housing and social programs crowd. And that's just going to burn more money.
I guess the other thing I would say I'm going to focus on more than I think our current or recent governors have is childcare. The pandemic cost us a lot of childcare providers. We have people providing childcare in this state who cannot even afford to get childcare for their kids. So their own kids are home without after school.
Alex is so interested.
Well, she doesn't directly answer any of his questions. She doesn't care about the topics that a governor would have to deal with. But she's got a name because she just ran for U.S. Senate, and she has the ability to raise money because she has a list. So I guess you have to take her seriously.
So their own kids are home without after-school programs so that they can go work in a child care. If we want to have families come here, young families come here. We want to see businesses grow here. We have to make sure we have the workers, and child care is a piece of that.
So is that more subsidies for people for child care?
I think it's thinking...
No, just more child care, more.
More money, more taxes, more spending, more problems.
Have you heard a big new idea yet?
Nope.
I think it's thinking about how to make the state's investment in child care. We have to think about this the same way we do education, roads. These are all, people can't leave their kid to get to work. It's just the same as if there's not a road to get them to work. And so I think we want to think about how can we bring down those costs and how can we put child care close to where people work.
This is someone who cares a great deal about federal issues. She wanted to be a U.S. Senator. That was her goal. She wants to be Elizabeth Warren. But she lost. So that's not going to happen. Had she stayed in her congressional seat longer, she maybe would have lost there at some point. Orange County is more conservative than her. She spends a lot of money to get reelected, but at a certain point, they would have turned on her. They would have gotten tired of her. So now she's running for an office to keep herself relevant where she doesn't care about any of the subjects that that office has influence over. This would be like me. I have a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in political science. I have covered politics on the radio and in the newspaper for a very long time. However, I could care less about the union contract and about the union that I'm a member of. This would be the equivalent of me running for some kind of union office and saying, well, I have these degrees in the subject. I've spent my entire career covering politics on the radio and in the newspaper. Wouldn't I be a great union official? Now, I don't know anything about any of the subjects that they would have to deal with, but that doesn't matter because I know about all this other stuff. That's what she's doing. God help us if this woman gets elected. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts. Let's say you want to learn more about Katie Porter. Go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
I call it the shift gift.
You do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app.
No!
Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store.
Little D.
It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
And download all the podcasts. I'm asking really nicely.
Please.
Right now, we're going through the sound of candidate for governor Katie Porter on with Fox 11's Elex Michaelson.
And Elex Michaelson just had to ask the Kamala question.
So we know that you worked with Vice President Harris when she was Attorney General Harris. We've got a picture of the two of you from back in that era. You like her a lot. You've said in the past that if she runs for vice president, that would have a, quote, field clearing
for governor.
effect. If she runs for governor, maybe she is running for president. That's a whole other story. If Vice President Harris runs for governor, it would have a field clearing effect. Does that include you? Are you out of the race if she's in?
So I'm one of the people who've gotten to see firsthand just exactly how talented she is when she's...
Oh, boy.
So we're going to start off this answer by kissing her ass.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm one of the people who've gotten to see firsthand just exactly how talented she is when she's serving California. I saw that when she was our Attorney General. And so if she were to declare for governor, that would everyone, including me, would have to think hard about whether to stay in the race. I think we don't know what she's going to do, and we don't know when she's going to do it. I will tell you that I did not hesitate to enter the race. And I'm not hesitating.
Just like when I didn't wait until Dianne Feinstein announced she was going to retire before I said, I'm taking that seat.
And what kind of argument is this? I am uniquely able to perform the duties of this job unless someone better gets in.
I will repeat myself.
You know, I'm great, but I'm no Kamala.
I don't get it.
And I'm not hesitating in terms of moving forward to talk to Californians, to listen to Californians, to come up with good ideas, because she's deciding. This moment calls for leadership. It calls for leaning forward, and there's a real frustration.
Boy, we're going with all the cliches now.
It's almost as if Rob Bonta was in the race.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
This moment calls for leadership. It calls for leaning forward. And there's a real frustration right now with Democrats, with politicians generally. Are we thinking about what comes next? Are we positioned to lead? And so I think it's really, really important that I get into the race. But anybody, including me, is going to have to understand that she is a formidable talent. She would have credible name recognition, and it would be very, very tough to compete with her for this job. And so I'm waiting to see what she does and what ideas she brings to the table. But I think we all have to be realistic about that.
I'm running unless she is.
Yeah, that's not an answer that's going to be acceptable.
Who's going to give money to that?
What politician is going to endorse her knowing that she will likely drop out and try to parlay that into something for herself in a Kamala administration?
But isn't that sort of an odd thing to say? Basically, I'm the best person except for her.
Well, I think
give me money unless you want to give her money.
No. She's not asking for money, right? She's not in the race.
No, but not yet.
She said she'd decide by the end of summer.
No, but
right?
that's part of the that's the thinking, right? That you got to get in now because everybody's got to raise so much money. She doesn't need to necessarily raise as much money because she's got 100% name ID and she's got the fundraising behind her anyways, and that's why everybody's doing it and she can wait.
Yeah, so look, I think that she can wait, but I think there is a cost to waiting, and there's a cost to California for waiting. So one of the things I've been able to do is take time after I was done serving in Congress the last few months, as I wound up my time in Congress, to listen, to travel, to do.
She dragged the kids on a road trip.
I thought she was teaching down in Irvine.
There's not a whole lot of that going on.
To do the work to help me think.
She obviously didn't like it because she quit that job again and after just 2 months.
Yeah, she won't stick around very long.
To do the work to help me think, to meet with some of the people who've worked for other governors, both Republican and Democrat, and to learn from them and to think about this job is different, right? It's different than.
Did she have a cigar with Arnold?
Could you imagine that? Sitting around watching his kid in White Lotus.
And to learn from them and to think about this job is different, right? It's different than the jobs I've had as a congressperson or as a consumer advocate. This is a different job than Kamala Harris has had as Attorney General.
Sure.
Neither of you are qualified for it.
Okay, now that we have that established, who are we voting for?
Or as vice president. So I've been using that time really, really wisely. We don't know what she's going to do, but I'm going to tell you this, This is a job that I feel strongly about, that I'm confident about my ability to do, that I'm also humble enough to know what I need to learn. I don't think we'd be well served by having people who think they can do a good job as governor, who are ready to take on Trump, who are ready to build housing, who are ready to bring down costs, who know the price of groceries. I don't think it would do well for us all to sit around.
Got to throw the groceries in there, didn't we?
Always back to the food.
I don't think it would do well for us all to sit around. The vice president has said it may take many, many months for her to come to a decision.
Right.
And respectfully, she's entitled to that time.
So you could see a scenario where she gets in and you stay in?
Well, I think it would depend on what happens and what she says when she gets in and when she gets in. If she announces tomorrow, Alex, I think it's pretty tough for everybody.
Yeah.
If she decides the day before the filing deadline, a few months before the election, I think that's a very different situation, both for her and for Californians, not just for me.
She wants to sit back and wait and see what the polls look like. And if she has viability, if she's polling strongly, then she's not getting out. It doesn't matter how much she claims to love Kamala Harris or how great she thinks Kamala Harris is. If she has any sign at all of viability, she's going to try to rip her face off.
Katie Porter is then asked, what's the big difference between her and the current governor?
So a lot of people feel like one of her biggest mistakes when she was running for president was when she went on The View and they asked her, how would you be different than President Biden? And she didn't really have an answer. So I'm going to ask you the same question about Governor Newsom. Mm-hmm. How would you be different as governor than him?
Well, I have a lot of respect for what Governor Newsom...
Oh, here we go.
Same thing with all of these answers.
Well, I have a lot of respect for what Governor Newsom's done, and a couple of things he's done have really improved my life.
You're not getting the endorsement.
And by the way, what's great is it doesn't matter how much fake praise she showers upon them. They all still hate her.
Well, I have a lot of respect for what Governor Newsom's done, and a couple of things he's done have really improved my life. He made school lunch free for every single kid in California.
It's always back to the food.
Yes, it is.
So what she's saying is she was too cheap to make lunch for her kids.
Well, she's on the exercise bike when she's in the kitchen.
For every single kid in California. You want to talk about bringing down costs? That put hundreds of dollars a month back in my pocket. Made community college free. I've got kids heading to college. And
you know what? I could have made you a sandwich, Paul, but instead you're going to get that pizza that's so greasy and cut like a square for some reason.
Enjoy.
Made community college free. I've got kids heading to college and knowing they can go to community college. So a lot of respect.
I don't think they're going to community college, Katie.
I don't think so either.
But sure, that helped me a lot.
A lot of respect for those ideas. I think one.
By the way, there is a state proposal to make the acceptance to all state schools automatic if you live in California. And it's being put forth by a member of the assembly who in West Sacramento, he was the mayor, made it a law that you automatically get accepted to every community college. John, have you ever seen someone who didn't get accepted to community college?
If so, I would like to meet that person and just study them like Jane Goodall studied the monkeys.
A lot of respect for those ideas. I think one difference is I'm going to try to focus more intensely on a couple of the biggest problems. And that was difficult for Governor Newsom to do, in part because of the pandemic, the recall. There have been a lot of wildfires several times. We're going to keep seeing that stuff. I think that makes it all the more important that you are committed to focusing on.
This isn't an answer.
No, it's not.
What's the difference between you and the guy who's currently running the state? How would you run it differently? I haven't heard a damn thing.
She's not very good at this.
What is the biggest challenge we are facing? And up and down this state, whether you're talking about rural communities where housing stock is aging, where they can't attract young workers, whether you're talking about urban California, the cost of housing is our biggest challenge. And so I think you're going to see me not just say, I want to do this and this and this and this and this, but really try to say, this is what we're going to do. And then move on to the...
She has no ideas.
No, she doesn't. Again, this is subject matter she doesn't care about. So to the extent that she has ideas, she's faking it.
Move on to the next thing. And I will think about how housing relates to things like transportation, how it relates to things like environmental protection, how it relates to things like wildfire.
The question was, how would you be different than Gavin?
And this is where we ended up.
We have got to have a strong economy in California. We should be thriving. We have talent, we have resources, we have people, we have we're the best state in the country.
Yeah.
And we need to have that pride and that energy and compete for jobs.
You know, there's a lot of people when you talk about housing who see the fact that we've just had these wildfires, and the response now is, let's get rid of a lot of these building regulations, let's suspend CEQA in these areas. And there's people that think, well, why don't we do that everywhere? If we can do that now, maybe we should do that for everywhere. It would help with building. Do you see there's any value in that?
No, so we definitely have to reevaluate CEQA as it applies to residential housing. We just have to. We are not going to be able to build fast enough and at a price point that makes the housing affordable for our workers. And so we need more workforce housing. We need more housing on dorms. We need more
Housing. Haven't heard this before.
No, what she wants, and the tip-off was the association with Wiener. She wants high-density housing in California. She wants us all living in mixed-use buildings next to light rail. She wants us all living above a P.F. Chang's or a Panda Express or 7-Eleven or whatever. And for us not to have parking, not to have cars, to ride the bus, to ride the metro, and that's how we get around. This is her vision of the future for California.
How is that any different from Gavin Newsom's?
Pretty much the same.
We need more housing for seniors who want to age in place. And so we are going to have to think about CEQA. I do think in talking to some of the the LA supervisors, they are working on a plan for thinking about, can we experiment a little bit here while still being true to the things that made those neighborhoods, that made Altadena and made the Palisades special.
Oh, good. She's consulting with Lindsay Horvath.
Oh, great. What could go wrong? If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Well, as expected, the mailbag has exploded over the last hour. There's a lot of pictures of Katie Porter on her bike and her minivan and things that we definitely cannot talk about on the air. There are several emails that are foul and offensive and have me take sensitivity training if I read it on the air. There's only one that I think is safe for air right here, and it comes from Susan. Susan writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, subject line, declare war on Katie Porter.
Please.
John and Randy, no. On this clueless, up-talking Katie Porter for governor. I think the opposition's animation team needs to get cracking on the pot of hot mashed potatoes over the husband's head videos now.
You know, it's topics like these that make me think that we should have a Discord page for this show so the listeners can share these things with each other.
It's not a bad idea.
Paul!
Just don't let your kids look at it.